few. Leslie, there were quite a few students who, okay, I see Faith said, I see Alejandra and Faith said right at the top. Yeah, I know that on my screen, when I look at it, I see just this little box. It looks like an envelope. So it looks almost like an envelope. You click on that and that's instant messaging. But I know I have Android. So I do know it will be a different placement if you have a different type of phone. So look somewhere towards the top of the screen, those of you who are unable to find it. I think that's where it may be located. All right, I see some of you say you may have struggled at first with the welcome discussion board icebreaker. When I went in and took a look at that, for the most part, the majority of students, you guys have gotten that in. I know with Emily, I've talked to you already. So if you have not yet been able to upload your video onto the welcome icebreaker assignment, that discussion board assignment, if you were unable to upload your video there, I did extend that assignment to give you guys a little bit more time on that icebreaker assignment. Depending on how you recorded your video, that will really determine whether or not you run into any issues. I found that the easiest way to upload those videos onto Brightspace through the discussion board forum is to either use the YouTube, create a video option, or if you are using your phone or, any other method of recording, that you then will drop it into YouTube so that you can kind of get that link, that shareable link. And from there, it's easier to take that link and then upload it onto, or copy and paste it onto Brightspace. So if you guys, again, struggled with uploading videos, the recommendation I would make is to attempt to take your recording and upload it to YouTube so that you can get the very shareable, easy to access link that then makes it easier you just to copy and paste onto Brightspace. So again, if you guys struggled with the icebreaker, there's a little bit more time for you guys to get that in. And I did want to allow the time because if you were unable to upload your video, I didn't want you guys just to feel like, oh, well, I can't get that assignment done. Like, there's ways we can work around if students are struggling for you guys to still get that information in. If you need any help, just reach out to me and I'll do my best to help out. All right, so again, going down, seeing a little bit more about the welcome video. I see Leslie said I used the, it's the little envelope at the top. So you also noticed you couldn't find it on the app, Leslie. Okay, I see. All right, so we'll talk about that. All right, so it looks like the majority of issues were either with that video or with finding the instant message. All right, so that's not too bad. I can live with that. So we will be embarking on pretty much the same process as we encounter week 2 module. So I did want to take you all into our discussion of that. So let me pull up a couple of things here. I did post week 2 module, and it's relatively short. So let me show you guys what we have posted here. This week's assignments primarily deal with reading, and this is why we took time out last week to really go over the critical reading habits. You guys remember on Wednesday, we spent time discussing those really critical reading and those analytical skills that students in this English 101 course will really have to employ in order to be successful. So let me take you guys quickly back to Brightspace to show you a few things. All right, so you guys see here the page. Let me show you recent documents I've posted. All right, so you see here on the screen week 2 module, and you'll see that there are about 4 items listed under the module. Most of the work we'll be doing this week will be in-class engagement or activities, but here on the module, you'll see they're mainly documents. So today we're going to take a look at a sample argument to kind of introduce us to the purpose of the argument essay and to kind of really allow us to test, if you will, those reading skills that we discussed on Wednesday in seeking out the author's main argument or their main point. Okay, so you guys see that document there. We really deal with this today. This week, we will also learn a little bit more about this concept of argument. So there is a what is argument presentation. Even though you guys keep hearing me say the word argument, when we talk about argument in terms of our writing, right, the act of persuasion, I'm speaking about argument in very specific terms. So this presentation outlines the terms under which we operate in argument in this class. So this particular presentation is an important part of Wednesday's class. So you guys see that there. Skipping ahead right here. Also included a YouTube video that talks about more about the purpose, audience and purpose, as we start to think about not only reading argument, but also writing our own. And lastly, I included a short article about stigma. I don't know if you guys remember from our first week in class, but all of the writing and a lot of the issues that we'll be tackling this semester will deal with stigma in healthcare. So before we really start exploring, this controversial topic further, I wanted you guys to have a good understanding of what does stigma mean? What does it look like in society, right? How does it affect and impact us? And how can those particular effects impact us in our health as well? So this is, again, just kind of introductory information here, okay? So as you guys see with week 2, it's mainly reading. So a little bit different from what you guys did with week 1, where you spend a lot of time actually completing activities. This is more so reading, but it's still important in information and knowledge you guys will need in order to engage in discussions this week, okay? All right, so you guys see that there. Backtracking just a little bit because I want to quickly review a few things from last week, but still kind of take us into our main topics today about this sample argument, right? What does argument look like? How should argument be operating? As audience members, what should we be expecting to get out of argument, right? And in what ways can we be persuaded by argument? So we're going to explore all of these things today. But before we do, I want to review just a few things. So I'm taking us back really quickly. Let me pause my share, because there was so much good information covered in the assignments from last week that I want to kind of revisit them before we totally put them to rest, and see also what some responses that you guys had to this information. So let me adjust my share, and then we can talk about it together. Uh-oh, this isn't what I wanted. Sorry, you guys, give me 1 second. All right, so you guys see here on the screen is the English 101 syllabus quiz / scavenger hunt. And even though you guys have completed this and submitted this, I do appreciate it. I do want to talk about, I'm going to jump around a little bit, but I do want to get your input on a couple of these questions. Some of it speaks uniquely to how you as individuals read the syllabus and information. So let's cover this really quickly before we put it in our rear view. All right, so basic questions, required text for the class. Let me ask this. Are we all clear on what the required text is for the class, whether we're purchasing a book or using the electronic version? Are we all clear on, okay, I see yes. All right, good.
Yes.
All right, one small text for the class. If you have purchased that already, that's great. If not, we do have a PDF version on our Brightspace course page. So you guys have access to the reading no matter what, okay? So make sure you guys are aware that it's there. Let me quickly jump to question number 4. Now, you guys have already submitted this. I've seen a lot of it in my email. And I think Jorge, oh, hold on. Sorry, you guys. I'm just thinking of a chat question someone asked. Someone asked a question about they weren't sure how to submit their syllabus quiz and scavenger hunt. If you weren't sure how to submit, students simply send it to me in my email. So I believe that was. Sorry, you guys. It's gotten a little bit far up in the chat, but I do think somebody dropped that in chat. But let's talk really quickly. You guys will help me out. And just from what you completed, okay, that was you, Alex. Okay. From your own responses or what you guys can just come up with off the top of your head, from the list of student practices, and I think there was like about 13 or 14 student practices listed on the syllabus. I asked you guys to list 3 that you plan to utilize in order to be successful this fall. So this is asking for you to, based on your goals, specifically identify what student practices you think will help you be successful. Which student practices do you guys remember? So just kind of throw anything out that you remember from this question.
Participate in each class.
I'm gonna get a better idea of how you answered it, but I also want to kind of share out with the other students in the class to kind of see similarities or. All right, so I see in terms of lists at least 3, and I see here 2 from Jariah. What are 3 student practices? Here you have time management and organization. Definite, look, even as instructor, I struggle with time management. I set my own time management skills goals all the time. So good, I like to see time management. That lets me know that some of you may have quite a few things, on your plate. You may be taking quite a few classes. You may be juggling quite a few balls. So managing your time, is important to you in terms of being successful. Good, I see that. I see organization from Jariah as well. Absolutely. Now, not only is organization helpful in being successful, but it also helps to eliminate a lot of confusion, especially in classes where teachers are throwing a lot of information at you. I believe that time management and organization are really important to being successful. Good. I see that Alex says holding yourself accountable. So this self-awareness, right? You're aware of what it is you need to do, what information or assignments you're responsible for. So holding yourself accountable for that. I like that. That's very college level. Alex, being mindful that while the teacher does have a job to do, the student also has a job to perform as well, and holding yourself accountable, to that is really important in being successful. Good. Kiara said participate in class discussions. Good. And anytime I see that, a lot of times students, for whatever, a variety of reasons, sometimes we're not always comfortable speaking up in class, but in a setting, especially like a remote learning setting, we know the importance of making sure our voice is heard. So for whatever your individual reason is, Kiara, I think participation in class discussion, really important. Even more important in our class where we are dealing with controversial issues and topics where your position or your viewpoint on that could be very important in moving forward class discussion. So I like that. I see Tatiana also brings up this idea of time, making sure you use your time to study. Good. And you guys see on the syllabus where I laid out, there are contact hours when we're in touch. Those are the 2 class meetings we have a week, but you also want to plan for extended or outside of class study hours. So where you guys mentioned time management, plan, like work in your calendar, just like you kind of plan outings or activities, plan study as though it's an activity. Set up particular study time, and I think that will help you guys to, you know, not only be successful in class, but to help conquer those time management issues. All right. I see Jariah again, curiosity. Absolutely. And I'm glad you even used the term curiosity, because sometimes, and I just noticed this talking to my son as he's preparing for class, he just wants to he's told himself he just wants to go to class and get it out of the way. But for you to really gain anything from that time or from that particular class, there has to be a level of curiosity. You have to care or look to receive information or knowledge from it as well. So not just so much, I need this college, you know, credit in order to get into my program, not so much what the class can do for you, but also what you can get out of the class, what learning you should walk away with. So curiosity is really important. Submitting assigned work on time. Yes, Caesar, that's really important. And I'm glad you brought that up too. You guys see how we're working these modules week by week. If you're ever late with a module or late with a particular assignment within a module, I really encourage you guys to reach out and let me know. A lot of times I'm willing to work with you, but you definitely don't want to let's say, forget about or not turn in a module. Anything that goes over a week due, normally is something that I won't accept. So you want to make sure you're submitting it, your assignments on time. Engaging in class, Leslie, and that even gets more difficult as we move into remote learning, where you're just kind of sitting and listening to an instructor. Sometimes you're never even seeing your peers' faces. Sometimes it is hard to stay engaged. So that's something that we all will really have to work at. But I do agree that's important in being successful in the class. Attending every class, that's important, Emily, especially in real time if you have like any questions. However, you guys do know if anything does come up and you can't attend class, I do record the class sessions. So if not so much attendance, really making sure you're engaged. So going and checking the recordings of class meetings that you've missed, and, you know, making sure you don't fall behind in assignments. That's more important than, you know, just the step of attendance, right? All right, using time to study, and I'm going to kind of wrap this up, and making sure if you need help to seek it, absolutely. I think that's necessary for success in any college class is, and that also ties to what, and I think it was Alex said it or someone mentioned this accountability, right? That's also a part of being accountable, this awareness that I'm struggling and seeking out the help when you notice that. All right. And Benito added, making sure you speak up when you need help and going to class. Okay, good. All right, so I know individually we all had our top three, but it was really good to share that out. What about number 5 really quickly, you guys? What part of netiquette, the netiquette guidelines, you guys remember that portion of the syllabus that I laid out that really spoke to how we are communicating online? Which of those netiquette guidelines did you guys value the most? And I know you may be thinking, if you can recall off the top of your head, okay, I see you, Don Trail. But if not, I can pull it up. But if you can recall off the top of your head. So one that Don Trail just dropped for us was the use of no caps, right? You said that that's something that you value, right, Don Trail?
Yep.
Sometimes I know students who just write in all caps just because
I
I hit
used to do
caps
that.
lock, and so, you know, it was all caps, so that's just how I wrote. But there is a way that all caps communicates to the online student, and all caps generally communicate that extra emphasis. It normally communicates exclamation. So all caps in a online setting characterizes yelling. So even if you are responding and you mean absolutely no harm, and I know most of the time we mean no harm, just be aware of how that may come across. So make sure you guys are capitalizing appropriately. You don't need to capitalize every word, unless you're using punctuation appropriately as well. So Leslie pointed out a netiquette guideline that you valued was the being professional online. Yeah, even though we are kind of building a learning community, we are still in a college, or academic setting, right? So you still want to use what I call professional or formal language. We don't want to misinterpret discussion or in-class communication with texting, because we know texting is designed for that informal, abbreviated communication. So there is a difference between what we do in class and what you guys will do with text. So just make sure you're using that formal language. Listening attentively to whoever has the floor, Kiara. I value that as well. I know it takes a lot of courage for students to speak up, even in an online setting. So really being respectful to anyone who's sharing their ideas, listening attentively to whoever is speaking. I see you agree with that, Caesar. Tatiana pointed out showing respect to each other, especially hearing each other's opinion. I'm glad that this came up. Even though we are still in kind of the early introduction phases, you guys will see as we really get into the class, as we really start exploring argument a little bit further, the basis of argument is controversial topics. What will normally create or spark argument is our abilities to disagree with one another. Argument is this process of disagreement, right? So we have to be able to disagree respectfully. But to help with that, I generally try to stay away from what I call risky or trivial issues or topics. So certain issues, I know it normally will get heated. I know anytime we deal with religion, politics, certain things, even with best intentions, sometimes I call it hard to argue respectfully when we're dealing with those deep convictions, right? So I try to help us avoid those minefields, but we really want to prepare ourselves that we may encounter someone whose opinion differs from our own. And we want to make sure that as we're learning argument in this class, we're listening attentively and using logic and reasoning to respond, not so much emotion or what I sometimes call surface ideas, right? So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I agree with you on that, Tatiana. Showing respect to each other's opinions and thoughts, right? We can argue respectfully. I see also Sion, and I know I just messed that name up. I'm sorry, but correct me. So how do I pronounce your name? Is it Sion, Cheyenne?
Cyan.
Mr. or Mrs. Brown? How do I
Mister.
pronounce your first name?
Cyan.
All right, I'll just say Sion for now, but listen attentively. You lose focus easily since you're at home. Yeah, I agree. I lose focus sometimes and I'm the one talking. So I understand that. So you're saying that's something that you'll need to work through. All right. Okay. I see you, Alex. Okay. Well, that's okay. I may shoot you an email because I have your email. So if I need any clarification, I'll shoot you a sidebar. All right, so good. These are things I wanted to just take a look at really quickly, you guys. Everything else within the scavenger hunt, I'll grade on a case-by-case basis. But I did want to throw a couple of those ideas out there before we get into our reading today of Malcolm X, our sample argument. So we'll talk about that in just a second. Let me go back to our Brightspace page, pick up the coverage there. Hold on, I see a message. Oh, so everyone is muted and can't speak up. Oh no, that's horrible. Hold on. Uh-oh. All right, hold on, you guys. Let me work on this. Oh, it says so I'm not hearing you guys on my end. All right, let me tell you guys what I did real quickly. The audio on my computer was muted, so I just looked down and saw that. So that is my bad. Totally nothing wrong when you guys is in. That's Miss Cole and Monday. So that's my bad there, you guys. But I should hear you now. Somebody give me a test.
Hello.
Okay, I hear you. All right, let me. So on top of you guys completing everything in the module 1, you also know that in content, I dropped the document that we covered last week about reading, right? So you guys remember this document? We talked about previewing, annotating. You guys remember that discussion?
Yeah.
Okay, I hear yes. I want us to use those ideas that we covered in that discussion, quick little discussion. I want us to use these habits in our approach to today's sample argument. So I'm going to drop the link in our chat box so that you guys can kind of access the digital text. But let me just quickly remind you guys of habits, what I call habits of a critical and active reader. These habits are necessary anytime you encounter reading in this class. So we talked about the importance of previewing. So as you guys encounter this sample article today, preview it. Look at who the author is. Look at the title. Make conclusions, right? Draw conclusions and make inferences about what should this text be about? What is it designed to teach me? What learning shall I walk away with? That is what the whole preview or process of previewing all about, right? We also talked about annotations. And for the most part, I think unanimously as a class, we confirmed that we all annotate. Annotations are college level writing habits. So for this sample reading that we're about to engage in, I'm asking that you students, that you guys jot down notes, take notes as you are going through the actual reading process, because we are going to talk about your annotations. So I'll give a little bit more instruction about that in just a moment. We talked about outlining or summarizing. Try if you can to summarize after you're done reading the author's main idea, just to make sure you were able to fully comprehend and understand the author's main point. Look for any repetition or patterns, because normally anything you see that's said time and time again, key indicator of key point or main idea. Contextualize. Think about when this was written. Think about who the intended audience is or was, right? Think about all of the experiences or expertise that the author brings to this particular topic. So you guys gonna have an opportunity to practice what we've talked about and what we learned in terms of critical reading. So let me drop this particular text in chat, guys. Give me just 1 second. So I've already given away the title of it. This is a speech given by Malcolm X. I believe it was in 1964. So that gives you a little context. As I'm dropping it in our chat box, I'm also going to put on the screen a little bit more information for you guys to engage in reading it. So first, let me give you guys the link. So you guys see the link there. If you guys will click on the link, let me know that you're able to pull up. It's a short little digital article, but tell me if you guys are able to view it. See, yes. Okay, good, Christian. Caesar.
Yes,
All right.
Miss Cole.
Okay, awesome. All right. So with that information, I'm going to go mute in just a moment. But before I do, let me again remind you guys what we're doing with this quick reading assignment. Let me share my screen. All right. So before you read, I want you guys just to know what you'll be looking for when you read. So you guys should be taking notes. So as though you are annotating this text, as you read it, highlight or well, you guys aren't able to highlight or underline since this isn't actual tangible text, but on a separate sheet of paper, jot down any details, explanations, or evidence that you feel support the author's main idea. So first, you definitely want to identify what you think is the author's main point or thesis. While you are reading, jot down any ideas that occur to you or that you think seem important. Go ahead and write those down. Just like with annotations, look for any vocabulary words that you're unfamiliar with, make note of those. And as you are reading, question the material and information by exploring, what does this mean? Why am I being asked to read this? And why is the writer drawing this conclusion? Okay, so these are just things I want you guys to keep in mind as you're reading. So we're going to take a few moments. It's relatively short. So I'm going to give us about 15 minutes and I'll kind of test and see where we are. And if we need more time, we can get up to 20 minutes on this, okay? So go ahead and start reading, you guys. I'm going to mute myself, but I'm still sitting here in case you have any questions. Are you guys able to see my screen with the colored text?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, you guys, I see that a few of you are finishing up. Is there anyone who needs more time? So if you need more time, do we need more time, you guys?
Yes, I need more
Okay.
time.
All right. I'll go on mute for just a little while longer. We're about at 50. Let's take about 5 more minutes. Okay.
Yeah, I also need more time.
Right, you guys, we're right at 55, and I know that some of you may still be working, and if so, that's okay. This exercise is really more for class discussion, just for us to get a better idea of the purpose of argument, as well as looking at the various ways that evidence or supporting details and logic is used to persuade. So this sample, us reading this particular sample, introduces us to our early understanding of argument in this class. So before we really kind of get to the parts of the article, let's go back to the questions or ideas that you guys are following as you're reading this. So hold on just one second. All right. So you guys were asked to read and jot down notes, and we were going to kind of share out our notes, how we read this particular text. This particular text is actually a speech. So this is a speech given by Malcolm X, I believe 1964, December of 1964, which gives us a little bit of context. So we'll talk about that in just a second, but let's take a look at how you guys read this text. So anytime you are encountering argument, argument always, again, the purpose of argument is seeks to persuade or convince the audience to adopt the author's point of view. So when you read argument, you need to always look for what is the author's point of view, because the point of view is important, because that is what they are attempting to persuade you to or persuade you against. So this whole idea of persuasion, it centers around the author's main point. So as you guys are looking at this and you're annotating, you guys were asked to identify the author's main point or thesis. What did we identify? What did we pick up as the author's main idea? If we could summarize it, or if you found an actual sentence from the reading, how would you guys summarize the author's main idea?
If I could talk, I didn't finish reading, but from what I could tell, the main idea of Malcolm X is to help people understand the truth for themselves instead of just believing in other people blindly.
Okay, so seeking out the truth for yourself, right? I'll kind of put that there. All right, and you said rather than just kind of going around blindly. Okay, that's a good summary. So seeking out truth for self. Did we have anything different, or maybe perhaps did we phrase it differently? Are you guys
making intelligent decisions?
Making intelligent decisions. Okay.
One technique that I used while I was reading was I synthesized each paragraph, because when it's like speeches and stuff like that, sometimes I gotta keep rereading and stuff. So to avoid me like doing that, I try to get a short summary in like the margins of each paragraph.
Good. So when you're reading, after you finish, like you see how it's broken into those kind of bite-sized paragraphs. And let me pull up the document, look, since we're doing this. But you see how it's split up into these bite-sized paragraphs. So you're saying that you'll take each paragraph and just kind of, okay, stop there. Now you're going to kind of synthesize or summarize what you're understanding so far. And that kind of helps you from having to go back and reread it as a whole. Did I get that right?
Because when it's time for like discussions and stuff, instead of like trying to figure out or which part highlighted I want to discuss, I know that each point that I made was not only a summary, but how I felt about it and stuff like that. I try to include all of that.
Okay, good. That's good annotation. That's good note taking. It's author's main point, but also your reaction to it, right? Okay, good. So I see Jariah wrote that he also spoke of how people tried to create bad images for him because of the way he responded to racism. Now that's good. That's a good point. But when he spoke about bad images, that was operating as evidence or as logic or reasoning surrounding his main point. So let me start here. Do we all agree that the main point is seeking out truth for self? Or we could also phrase it as making intelligent decisions for yourself, okay? Right? If I could point to a particular sentence, let's say, that would identify this, I would point to this first sentence. One of the first things I think young people, especially nowadays, should learn how to do is see for yourself, listen for yourself, and think for yourself. So even though you guys summarized it perfectly, making these intelligent decisions, seeking out truth for self, yeah, he's saying that people nowadays, right? And he referred a lot to young people. We'll talk more about that. But they need to research, seek out truth for yourself. Okay, so we'll take that. We'll kind of mix those all together. So good. So now that you guys know what that main idea is, we can start to look at how did the author support or develop that main idea. Anytime you are looking at argument, when the author makes their main idea or their main point, what they're making is a claim. And their job as the arguer is to support and prove their claim. So if Malcolm X is making the claim that people should see for themselves, listen for themselves, and think for themselves, then he is supporting that with reason, logic, and evidence, right? So Jariah pointed out already evidence that he attached to. It's important to think for yourself because people use images. They create images in order to mislead you, right? So he pointed to a specific detail or supporting detail as to why it is important, right? He's attempting to persuade you as to why it is important to seek out truth for yourself. So he gives examples and evidence in order to help that. What are some other reasons or evidence that Malcolm X laid out for us as to why we should think for ourselves or seek out truth for ourselves?
I really liked there was this sentence where it said how if we don't learn how to think for ourselves, we will have our friends as enemies and our enemies as friends. So I feel like that was a really good like argument or point he made.
Yes.
Supporting his argument.
Good. I like that. And as audience member, you're speaking to something that really resonated with you. So what you guys will see, a really large part in argument is audience participation. Since the goal in argument is to persuade or convince your audience, then whenever your audience is compelled by details or they're compelled by logic or reasoning, you are working to persuade or convince them to your side. So just where you mentioned that you liked or you were moved by this statement that it'll have your friends as your enemies and your enemies as your friend. He's speaking about that misinformation. When you don't get information for yourself, you can be deceived into thinking certain things. So he did lay out a lot of evidence or reasons or ways that we can be deceived, right? So I like that. What else? I see that Kiara said there was a line that stated someone can create a certain image. Yeah, I made note of that image line as well. Someone can create a certain image and then use that image to twist your mind and lead you right up a blind path. So when he talks about images, he's really referring to media, okay? He's talking about television and images that we see in media, right? So yeah, I see this, Jorge. Let me read this quick quote. I see you identified, Jorge. If the press is able to project someone in the image of an extremist, no matter what the person says or does from then on, it's considered by the public as an act of extremism, no matter how good it is, because it's done by this person who has been projected as an extremist, no matter what it is, right? So, hold on, let me go on. Extremist, no matter what that person says or does from then on, is considered by the public as an act of extremism, no matter how good it is, because it's done by the person. Oh, I said that already. I'm sorry, you guys. Oh, it says no matter how positive it is, how constructive it is, these people have been misled by the press, have a mental block, and the press knows it. So he's telling you, even if it came across on a news channel, even if it came across in written publication, the media or the press has a way of creating images that can sometimes be twisted to misinform. So he's kind of laying out the what I call blueprint for seeing things for yourself. Just because we saw it on TV or just because we saw it on the internet or in these modes of media does not mean it's necessarily true. So again, he uses that detail in order to persuade us to look for our own information, seek out truth for ourselves. Caesar says you have to learn how to see yourself, hear for yourself, think for yourself, and then judge for yourself, right? So he's saying it should be up to you, to make your own decisions. Don't leave it up to others, to kind of make those decisions for you. Tatiana points out that he gave examples of real life situations, such as the press viewing someone in a violent image in order to manipulate our minds and believing them, when we must take precautions for ourselves based on our knowledge and understanding. Good. So this is coming directly from you guys' notes. Yeah, I had quite a few moments of those aha moments while I was reading. So I was jotting down a few things too. So a lot of what you guys have added, I also about the creating images, about the press.
Miss Cole,
Yes, go
can
ahead.
I just throw something in?
Sure.
Oh, reading this passage, I kind of like had a flashback on the passage I did on the single story, because it's almost similar to the single story in the sense that the single story paints an image of a certain people, a certain thing, and you actually have to be in the thing or be in the place to actually feel what the person told you about the place. Like when Chimamanda quoted the example of how she thought Mexico was like a very poor country,
Mm-hmm.
but when she got there to know it for herself, it was something completely different. So it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like similar here, because
Yeah, I see,
the
which
press
I see
paints
that
an image of
connection
something.
too. Like I like that connection, Julia. So um she's referring, you guys, I had Julia in the previous class, and she's referring to a text that we read in a previous class. And in that, it was a speech also. In that speech, the author was talking about or warning against buying into stereotypes. And again, she spoke about how we can have these preconceived ideas that come. She talked about how the media had portrayed, let's say, Mexico or other poor countries a certain way. So when she went there, she expected it to be a particular way. And she was saying, but through her own knowledge, through her own experience, she found out it was something totally different. So yeah, I do definitely see that connection there. All right, let me see. I saw a couple more. I see Janet
May I
says,
say
so
something very fast, Miss Cole?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Um, I think the third paragraph, the opening, is very important, where he says it's good to keep open ears and listen to what everybody has to say,
Yeah.
but it's also important to weigh everything you hear so you can make a decision that you'd be happy with.
Yes. I like that when you say wait, because you talked about somebody had laid out, think for yourself, listen for yourself so that you can judge for yourself, right? So that you can make, and somebody pointed out it's all about making intelligent decisions. So you can make an informed decision. Good. Let me throw out a couple of other things that students have added and hope I haven't moved too far down. So we talked about Jorge. Thank you for that. Sebastian, he spoke about simply learning things for ourselves. Kiara, oh, okay, I read that about image. Okay, I see you, Jorge. Give me 1 second, you guys. And then I read also about that press. Emily said you will be walking west when you're going east, right? So he gave a lot of different ideas on how when we don't seek out knowledge for ourselves, how we can be kind of misled, right? Caesar pointed out you have to learn how to see yourself right. I remember this: hear for yourself, think for yourself, and then judge for yourself, right? Kind of making your own conclusions. Tatiana said he gave examples of real life situations such as the press viewing someone in a violent image, and then okay, yeah, I remember reading that. Sorry, you guys. Tatiana says it also connects how arguments happen based on everyone's own opinions and beliefs of the situation. Absolutely. Half the reason that I'm bringing this up so early in the semester is as we start to jump into our own arguments, argument has to come from an informed place. It can never just come from how you feel about something. It has to come from you are informed on this topic. There has been some research involved. There's been some type of information uncovering, right, that has taken place for you to arrive at the conclusion that you arrived at. So we are learning to argue differently in this class, not just on feelings. And then from there, we're using information that we've gotten from someone else. We're always going to argue based on information we gathered for ourselves and conclusions that we've reached on our own. So this is a good first text that kind of helps walk us into that. All right, I'm sorry, what else? And then last, I think this is Tatiana. Oh no, I'm sorry. my last one, Kiara. So I just take time to mention that because it is very dangerous for you and me to form the habit of believing anything completely about anyone or any situation when we only have the press as our source of information. It is always better, if you don't want to be completely in the dark, to read about it. I made that exact same note, Kiara. He's in making his main point, which is, learn for yourself, read for yourself, judge for yourself. He's laying out reasons why that is so important. And you guys have included a lot of those in the discussion. But quickly, with what he brought up about image making, right? We see this real time right now, right? So what are some things just in connection with what's going on in the world all around us? What can we say may be some images that may be misleading or misinforming us? Like, as you guys are reading that, did you make any connections in your mind to anything that's going on right now? Did you relate to anything that's happening around us right now? Did you guys think
Do
of anything?
you
Yes, Miss
do
Cole.
you whoever want to go first?
No, go
My
ahead. You
bad.
go ahead. I hear you.
I don't know when everybody remember when the coronavirus first came out, or when everything, like the speculation about it. I remember, and this might be funny now, but they said black people couldn't get the coronavirus, so it was really black people out here like walking around with no
Yeah.
mask on, and then like black people had like the most leading cases. So it's like kind of like what you said. That's what I thought about.
Yeah, no, that's a great one. That is because, and not that I think anybody will laugh at you, but with coronavirus, let me tell you the limitations of that. We only had one source, right? So it was almost like we didn't, because I think the news media in some cases was reading from the CDC or Johns Hopkins, who were kind of doing the research on it. So it's like almost as if we were all relying on one source, although the virus was still in its developing stages. So there's been lots of things thrown out about the coronavirus that, yeah, we've been misled on a few things, and
Our president has misled us a lot.
yeah. So again, that is why, again, speaking to the importance of, I see Kiara said the media calling the coronavirus a Chinese virus. Yeah, talking about in some cases masks aren't necessarily needed. So we saw in real times, and I like that one, Jorge. I'm gonna talk about that. But we saw in real time what happens when misinformation rules the day, right? Everyone is confused. And it was hard for us to kind of judge for ourselves with that misinformation. Jorge pointed out how the peaceful protests were being branded as riots or looting, right? Absolutely. That was the connection I made, Jorge, as I was reading the statement that images, how he stated how images can be used to mislead. How anytime they talked about the protests in response to, it started at the end of May in response to the George Floyd killing. And we've had protests pretty much since then, right? But in some cases, the press or the media will present the protests, which are very purposeful. There's a reason why the people are getting out there and protesting. They'll reduce it to these acts of violence or the looting, and where if you're not careful, if you're looking at or following the protests, some of us may be misled to think that, oh, this is just a bunch of people who got together in the streets and they're burning down buildings and looting Target, right? When in actuality, in every movement, there are anarchists who attach themselves to movements for the purpose of creating anarchy. That's like where the word comes from, right? And they will attach themselves, and I'm talking about as early, you guys, as the Boston Tea Party. There are people who come in as agitators to kind of confuse or misrepresent the situation. So there are anarchists who have attached themselves to these protests, peaceful protests, and it's kind of created some confusion. So you guys see that. Yeah, okay. And Caesar, I definitely agree. Yeah. Malcolm X here is pointing out the same thing that you're pointing out, that one of the larger authors of confusion is how we are being fed images and how the press is, using that information. All right, so some of you guys have a lot of things on here, but before I go back to that, let me get ready to get us out of here. Hold on. Let me go back to the share that I originally had up just to make sure that I'm not missing any questions here. So any vocabulary words, what does it mean? Okay, so where we talk about context, you guys, did you guys notice the author of this text, right? What do we know about Malcolm X? 5 quick minutes, but what do you guys remember? What do we know about Malcolm X already?
He's a civil rights activist.
We know he's an activist, yes. What else?
I know his ideals were a little more, I guess people would say, violent than Martin Luther King.
Okay, we can talk about that, right? But he was the flip side of the nonviolent coin. He believed, I'll deal with you how you deal with me, right? So he was all for violent confrontation if that was how he was dealt with, right? I see he was a activist, right? Good. He believed in peace, but went about it with violence. Okay, all right, I see that. Another thing to keep in mind about Malcolm X was an educator. So he was also not only was he an activist, not only was he a Muslim, but he was also a teacher. He was also an organizer. So he gave speeches and taught classes with the main goal of persuading people to adopt his point of view. So I think for this particular topic, do you guys agree that for this topic, he is a credible source? He's someone who can speak about this topic of judging for yourself, learning for yourself, seeing for yourself, right? Anytime we think about context, we want to think about when something was written. So we know this was written in 1964 in December. But if we know anything about Malcolm X, we know he was assassinated in 1965. So he wrote this, well, not wrote, this is a speech. He gave this speech the end of 1964 with kind of a weariness. There's a fatigue behind his writing. At the time he wrote this, he had had death threats on his life. He had kind of disbanded from the Nation of Islam. So he was kind of going through his own internal struggle, which we can kind of see behind the, if we read between the lines, if we know enough about the author, we kind of see what's going on. Why does he really tell these students, watch out for the press? They'll have you loving your enemies and hating your friends. Why do you think that's poignant coming from him?
Because he thinks most of them in the later future will aspire to become leaders.
Yes. I like, he's aware who he's speaking to. So did you guys see the language, our people, we? He kept saying our people. He's talking to a particular audience. And I know you may think in seeing our people that he's talking to Black people, but no, he's talking to future activists. He's identifying the group who comes to see him. He's identifying his followers as people who believe in the movement. So when he addresses them, he says we, and he'll say us, and he'll say our people, but he means people who have a common goal in the struggle. So it could be Black, it could be white, it could be Muslim, Asian. He was aware that of his diverse audience, but he addressed them as leaders in the cause, right? But why else would he be a unique voice to speak about this?
Maybe because his friends fell victim to it, or people tried to trick him with that method before.
Not only was he tricked with that method before, he kind of took on believing what other people told him in terms of his early understanding of the Nation of Islam. He was sour about that. He was sour. He felt tricked. He felt taken advantage of. And so on top of that end, but also as an activist, he felt that the media had unfairly represented him as well. So even though he's been, gone now for quite a while, some people we still view Malcolm X as this vigilante in some way, right? As this violent activist, whereas there is no violent crimes in history attached to Malcolm X. Like, isn't it amazing how he has this reputation as being this violent activist where he had never really involved himself or been involved with any violent acts, right? So he talks about how the media created that image of him, and the media twisted that idea of him. So he's encouraging them, now that you know a little bit more about me, I'm encouraging you to learn more about anything so you can judge for yourself, because he was aware of how he was painted and portrayed in media, and he felt that it was inherently false. So this whole idea of seeking out information for yourself, when we look at it in context, he's speaking from experience, and he's bringing that experience to his argument. So he has credibility, he has evidence in terms of when he talks about the press or media, and he has logic and reason in order to persuade or convince. All right, sorry you guys, we right at 21. So yeah, you guys kind of see what we're doing here, but let me tell you what to do in preparation for Wednesday's class. I had plans for a check-in today, but time really got away from us. So I'll take roll kind of based on what you guys dropped in chat. I didn't really have a thorough check-in. I had another, so I'll take roll that way. But what you guys want to do in preparation for Wednesday's class is view the what is argument presentation. So view it, or you can preview it. If not, we're going to look at it in class. So that's just a heads up. So technically, you don't really have any homework. Just kind of peruse through the module and kind of look and see what we have coming up. All right. Did you guys have any questions before we get out?
Nope. No questions.
All right. No questions. All right. Thanks, guys. Good discussion. We'll pick this up on Wednesday.
Toodles.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Miss Cole. Have a good
All
day.
right. Bye, you guys. Have a good one, Benito.
Miss Cole, I have a quick question.
Yes, Julie.
I keep writing my aces, right? I don't know if I use were in the place of was, because I know American